Just when you thought that Luffy would just say, hey, Ace is my big brother, he goes out of his way and says something like this. I swear, Luffy has no chill. Like, this man legit has no chill in his body whatsoever. But at the same time, I think that is one of the reasons why many of us love Luffy as a character, because he's so blunt. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He doesn't try to drag it out. He just says it like it is. He's like, yeah, Ace is dead. And it speaks a lot. With Luffy saying something like that, it says a lot about his character, how he hasn't changed, but has changed as well. And I know that's kind of, weird to say that, but there's reasons why I do. Number one, Luffy is blunt as always, which has been a part of his character since the very beginning of the series. Number two, him saying Ace is dead shows that Luffy has accepted Ace's death. It was something that Luffy had to take a lot of time to overcome, and we can see, thanks to what happened to Ace, it's done everlasting effects to Luffy and his crew. And seeing how he said something like that to Tama out of nowhere, it's like, yeah, Ace is dead, shows that he's tried to move forward from Ace's death, trying to put it behind him. It's like, what's done is done. It's happened, I gotta move on. And so speaks a lot about Luffy's character, and I like how Oda did that. He gave us a lot of depth to Luffy's character, just having a quick line like that. Now, speaking of Tama, though, and Ace's death, Tama, she's having a really bad day. Like, I'm feeling really bad for this girl right now, because, I mean, number one, she invites Luffy into her house. Like, she gets chased by bandits and stuff, and Luffy saves her, and she offers up the only food that she's gotten, in a long time. She only gets rice 2 times per year, New Year's and her birthday, and today's her birthday. She gave up her rice to a complete stranger. Then she drinks contaminated water to not be able to suffer from starvation, and so she poisons herself, has a high fever, is sick, passing out. Then she is told that Ace is dead. She's having a really bad day. I just can't help but say, I feel very bad for Tama right now. Like, this poor girl is going through a hell of a lot, and I do hope before this arc is said and done that she gets some happiness, because she clearly has had a pretty crappy few years of her life. I just hope she does get some form of happiness at the end. Now, speaking of Tama and Luffy and Ace's relationship, with the way Oda went about this chapter, it's obvious that he's setting up for either A, Luffy inviting Tama to join his crew, or B, Luffy is going to have a Shanks Luffy moment. What I mean by that is that if we go back to the origin of One Piece, Shanks is what inspired Luffy to be a pirate, to become the Pirate King. And remember, Shanks, passed on his hat to Luffy. And I'm assuming the way this is going, and the way Tama was, connected to Ace, and how Luffy is as a character now, Luffy might be that new idol for Tama to look up to want to be a pirate, to, join his crew, or she might start her own crew. I feel like the way this arc is going, Luffy is going to be like the equivalent of Shanks for Tama. He's going to be this idol for her. She's going to look up to him, want to be her own person, and go out there and adventure around in the sea. That would be very cool if that's where Oda's going to take this arc with Tama, but I highly doubt that Luffy would give up his hat. That would be a very shocking event if Luffy was to give his hat over to Tama, because it's so iconic, it's a part of his character, it's a part of the crew's name. I don't think Luffy would give his hat over to Tama, in this arc. I mean, he might do it at the end of the series when he's passing on his will, his legacy to someone else, but right now it wouldn't happen. So even if we do have like a Shanks moment with Tama and Luffy, it's not going to be probably to the extent of passing on the hat. That would have to be really crazy for something like that to happen. But anyways, though, Tama, though, going through a lot, and I do especially love one scene in this chapter with her. I love the little hat she was wearing. And what I mean by that is the straw hat. Yes, she was wearing Luffy's straw hat in the chapter. It was something that you might miss, honestly, because it was so quick. But when Luffy was riding on the lion to get to the wasteland, you see Tama, when she wakes up, she has Luffy's hat on her head. And I'm like, yo, that's so cute. Like, oh my god, it's adorable. Like, it looks so cute. I mean, just seeing her with Luffy's iconic straw hat, I'm just like, yo, I need more of that. It's super adorable. And I feel like once this arc is said and done too, she's probably going to make straw hats that resemble Luffy's straw hats. Since she is a hat maker, she's probably going to make hats like Luffy and probably sell them around because people are going to want them. He might become like their new overlord, or, you know, actual emperor that reigns over their country. Because remember, Luffy is taking countries now. He is taking territory. For instance, he has taken Fishman Island, and, you know, most likely he's going to try to take this territory of Wano if everything goes right. I could see if he does manage to get Kaido out of this land, and, you know, get the proper situation with, you know, the Shogun, Luffy might take this territory for himself, which would mean that everybody would like him, and I could see Tama and everybody else making hats in Luffy's name, which I think would be pretty cool if that's where Oda's trying to go with this arc. Now, let's talk about the environment of Wano. So we heard about in the last chapter that the rivers are all poisoned because of the factory runoff, and it makes sense because, you know, Kaido has been running a lot of factories. He's been trying to get production up for his, you know, his military, his army, and all of that. So, you know, it's going to cause a lot of damage to the environment. That's what factories do, too. And we see the effects to the landscape. The landscape has legit turned into a barren wasteland, like a post-apocalyptic land. And I like how Oda went about this reveal, because when you saw how we were first introduced into Wano, it was a very beautiful location. A lot of flowers and all of that. You're like, yo, this is beautiful. And then now you look in this chapter with the giant wasteland, you're like, okay, I see what you're doing, Oda. You're showing that it was a pretty picture, but it has a lot of darkness underneath, and that, you know, it's not going to be a beautiful place. It's just been destroyed and ravaged by Kaido and his men, and that right there makes this arc very interesting, because it's something we really haven't seen before in One Piece. We saw slight examples of this with Punk Hazard, with how the environment was forever changed thanks to a fight between two admirals. But the way the environment's been changed is thanks to human technology wanting to progress and all of that. And so I feel like the damage to Wano, in a lot of ways, is going to be irreversible. It's going to take a long time for the environment to be fixed. I mean, the water's contaminated, the wildlife is contaminated and poisonous, and so that's pretty freaking bad. Speaking of contamination and poison, that final scene with Zoro and Luffy, by the way, that was great when Luffy was telling Zoro about the food. He's like, the food's poisonous, you need to be careful and all that. And as he's telling Zoro, he's just sitting there chowing down on the meat. I'm like, of course the Luffy would, you know, eat the very meat he's talking about, saying it's poisonous and bad. And Zoro's like, oh, that explains why I have a stomachache. I'm like, yeah, but I highly doubt the food is probably going to affect Luffy at all, because, I mean, Luffy has gained a high tolerance to poison. I mean, he's almost immune to poison after what happened with Magellan, and then the poison fish skin that he had, you know, back in Whole Cake Island. He's gained a lot of poison immunity, so I highly doubt that this food that's, you know, been contaminated is going to cause any problems to Luffy. But at the same time, though, I'm just like, oh my god, Luffy, come on, man. Like, you're straight up not heeding the warnings of eating this bad food like it is nothing. But okay, let's get into what everybody probably wants me to talk about, the Zoro and Luffy moment. Zoro and Luffy, they're finally back in the same chapter. Same panel, working together, about to pick a fight with Hawkins. I'm looking forward to that, I really am. I'm pretty excited, because I like Hawkins as a supernova, but I want to see Zoro kicking butt with Luffy. That's going to be entertaining. But I especially love the designs at the end, how they're both in kimonos, and Luffy is trying to draw a sword like Zoro is trying to draw a sword. And I'm like, is Luffy really going to try to fight with the sword? Is he legit going to try to do this? Is he really going to, you know, try to go in and fight with a sword without any knowledge? I'm curious if he's going to do that, or is he just going to wave it around like, you know, a numbnut or something. I'm kind of curious about that. But speaking of the sword, that's very important. It's a named blade. It's a blade that has popped up in the past with information, and it's related to Zoro's sword. So I wonder if Zoro is going to use that blade that Luffy is carrying. I'm very curious, because the way this arc is, we know it's a Zoro-themed arc. Like, it's going to have a lot of, I guess, progression for Zoro's character. And I feel like because of how this arc is, Zoro might get a new blade, a new sword or something. And I could see him, you know, getting one of these blades, maybe from the, the character, the Tengu guy. Maybe he might make Zoro a new blade or something, which would be really cool if that does happen, because he says he is waiting for someone apparently, and for all we know, what he means by that is he's waiting for someone to come and meet him that is worthy of him making a blade or something. Since he is a swordsmith, I could see something like that happening. That's about it when it comes to the chapter. There's a lot of great stuff, I mean, with the whole thing with Ace and how, you know, he helped out Tama, to, you know, how he fed the village. I mean, there's just some great stuff in this chapter. Definitely a high-quality One Piece chapter. The only thing I'm a little bit upset with is the fact that next week, One Piece is going to be on break, which Oda needs his breaks. Not faulting the man for that. I'm just saying it's going to suck because we're not going to have any chapter next week, so it's going to be kind of terrible. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.